Hi friends, we continue our study through the Gospel Sync. That's all four Gospels in one single narrative. And I put a link to a document in the video description below so that you can follow along. But last time we were in Matthew 1, verses 18 through 25. And this time we're in Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. And we're going to let Deb read the passage and then we'll jump right into it.
Luke 2, 1 through 7. Now in those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that a census should be taken of the whole empire. This was the first census to take place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to his own town to register. So Joseph also went up from Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David, called Bethlehem, since he was from the house and family of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was engaged to him in marriage and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for her child to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn.
Today's Disciple Maker lesson is focused on efficiency. We have our idea of efficiency, and then God has his idea of efficiency. And when Deb read the passage and we see what Joseph and Mary had to go through in order to give birth to their first child, the Son of God, it's amazing how inefficient it seems, and I think in order to start off, let me take you on a short flight. It'll only take a minute. It took 4 or 5 days for Joseph and Mary to travel these 80 miles, but just check out the terrain that Joseph and Mary had to traverse in order to get to Bethlehem. So here we are in our Gospel Sync touring helicopter, and you see Nazareth to our front, and we're going to take a real quick flight down the Jordan River Valley. You saw the Mount of Transfiguration a little while back. We will do in-depth tours of some of these places, but look at the Jordan River Valley. Now, it's a lot more fertile because of irrigation, but as you look at this terrain, it's relatively flat. Now, the right and left side are very rocky, but this is relatively flat, and you see the Jordan River meandering through the valley. Now we're heading up to Jericho right here, and then we're going to go through the mountain passes up into Jerusalem, and as we peek over the Mount of Olives, we see the Temple Mount and the Dome of the Rock, and now for a nice, safe, soft landing into Bethlehem. I told you that it was going to be a quick flight, the magic of video editing. So that's 80 miles from Nazareth to Bethlehem, and can you imagine taking your 9-month pregnant wife on a journey like that? I mean, the equivalent today would be like taking your poor wife, putting her in a wheelbarrow, traveling over 80 miles of dirt road, only to have your first son in a dog kennel and then place him in an oversized dog bowl and to be visited by garbage men. That's kind of the scenario that we see here. And, when you think about it, you ask the question, God, how efficient is this? I mean, couldn't you have brought your Son, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, into this world some more efficient way? Well, our idea of efficiency is not God's idea of efficiency. It reminds me of Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. See, it's kind of like an earthworm trying to understand trigonometry, you know. God's idea of efficiency is way different than ours. And if you've been a follower of Jesus for any time at all, there are times when you're left scratching your head and thinking, why God? I'm sure you've heard of the divine appointment, but have you heard of divine disappointment? I had a friend, he was an amazing man. He was kind of on the forefront, the cutting edge of movements of the gospel, had seen incredible works of God all over the world, had documented these things, was training and coaching us. He was a friend, and this guy was probably one of the foremost missionary movement leaders in the world. And then all of a sudden, Steve Smith got cancer. And we prayed and prayed, and surely God wants to heal Steve so that he'll be around to lead movements all over the world, because that's God's work. And, you know, in God's sovereign timing, Steve passed away with cancer. And I gotta tell you, I was so disappointed, so disillusioned with, why God? Why are you taking this man? You know, he's like leading thousands of people around the world, and the gospel is ringing out because of this man's influence. And yet you take him, and he was younger than I am. And I really had to work through and struggle with, how is this efficient, God, in reaching the world for you? And at the end of the day, I had to say, Isaiah 55, 8 and 9, my thoughts are not his thoughts, and my ways are not his ways. So let's move to some action plans. What do we need to do as disciple makers? Well, the first thing that we need to do is recognize ourselves as disciple makers. Our idea of efficiency is not necessarily God's idea of efficiency. The second action plan may be something like, as a disciple maker, how are you going to address the disappointment and disillusionment of the people that you're discipling when they ask, why God? How are you going to explain how God's efficiency is much better than ours, biblically? Or maybe as a disciple maker, you need to do a Bible study with those that you're mentoring, and just search out the scriptures and see what God's efficiency looks like, that it looks a lot different than ours. Or maybe you have a better application, but let's be doers of the word and not merely hearers of the word. Okay, that's all the time that we have for today. Until next time, keep making disciples for Jesus.